You just went, okay, so. All right, so we're a little ahead of schedule by about 20 minutes, so it's very understandable if Stephen stepped out not thinking he had to be here for another little bit.
The third place pitch?
Sure, yeah. Do you want to come up and real quick talk a little bit about what...
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. So we'll hear from our third place winner a little bit about what he did. There you go. I'll bring you back here to SimLab IT. There you go.
Thank you.
All right.
I apologize if I'm a little nervous. I actually, honestly, was not expecting to win anything. But in short, we've been around for 2 years and we've been working with different companies to create different lessons for customer service as well as for education. But what they were telling us is that they didn't want to spend 40 to 50,000 euros on one lesson that they were only going to use for specific cases. They wanted a platform where they could go to online and create their own lesson and distribute to their students and staff so that they could utilize XR whenever they want, however they want, and basically do a kind of A/B testing to see what works and see what doesn't. So we started creating that, and for Valmet we've incorporated also a real-time translator based off of IBM's Watson that can translate to multiple languages and be implemented into these virtual reality environments so that they can communicate with any of their customers from around the world.
Very nice. And that's what got you the third place. Congratulations one more time, everyone, for SimLab IT. And since we're a little bit ahead of schedule, I just want to say a couple of things that I think is really important. We've said a couple of times this is the first edition of the XR Challenge. And already the organizers and the producers have been talking about doing this more. But in order for that to happen, they need to know from you, number one, that these things are appreciated and enjoyable. So if you think that there should be another one of these, or maybe several more, make a round of applause so that we give a little motivation to the producers. Good. Now, that's the easy part, okay? The hard part is they're going to ask you to do something which is very, very difficult, I know. They want you to send some feedback, okay? They want to know what worked well, what didn't work, what types of fields you might be interested in seeing a little more, maybe ideas for types of challenges that they could have in the next round of these. So after this whole seminar is finished, you'll get an email with a feedback form. They would really, really, really love to have you fill that out and send it back so that we can continue having more events like this and keep offering more opportunities for people to collaborate and network and meet each other. So that's now up to you to make sure you send that feedback form. Cool? Yep. The one person's going to do it. Great. Let me just check in real quick and see if we're going to take a quick break or if we found Stephen.
We'll see the second place
The video.
winner video.
Great. Cool. So second place, like I said, came from a student who couldn't be with us yesterday to do his presentation. So he sent in a video, and we're going to play that video. It's a short video, about 2.5, 3 minutes, and I think it's worth an opportunity for you all to see it.
Hello, my name is Pentia. I'm an engineer currently studying a master's degree in technology competence management in Karelia University of Applied Sciences, and I was awarded with one of the student track prizes of the Xrchallenge for my idea, manual. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there today, but I wanted to take this opportunity to present my idea through this short video. A couple of years back, we were starting a project of building a supercar chassis using precast tubes. The tubes were designed to align to each other using clever pinhole method, but there were nearly 500 separate parts to be installed on individual spots in the chassis. There was a rather big pile of blueprints to be managed, and in addition to the non-productive labor that goes into managing them, there was also a high risk of corporate espionage to be considered. During the same time period, I was also working on building a virtual learning environment using the latest VR and AR equipment, and therefore I had experimented on many technologies, one of which enabled to build a solution to this problem. Now, almost every product today is designed in some 3D modeling software, and it seems rather unnecessary to print out two-dimensional images of the three-dimensional models when AR allows you to use the 3D models directly. The best way to do this is to use an AR device to display parts of the construction on top of the unfinished product. And this is exactly what Manuar does. It uses a mobile handheld device as the displaying device, as they can offer the best accuracy and are the easiest to use when wearing a safety helmet or a welding mask. When using Manuar, the first phase is to align the AR device with the construction, and for this purpose you can use any given point that allows a firm alignment of the device into the construction. If there aren't such places on the construction, you can easily add one by using a 3D printed crease, as is done in this example. Once the device is aligned, you start up the application and it calibrates the device on the construction. Now you just need to find the next part from the menu and the application displays it on the exact spot in the construction. So finding out the right position for each part takes only seconds, and all the secret information is stored within a secure device that can only be opened by authorized users. Manuar allows assembly and construction workers to focus on the productive parts of their jobs and keeps corporate secrets safe. Now, I built the demo of the application to prove it works, but bringing this to the market requires a lot more resources, and building a standalone device for this purpose would probably be the best business logic here. I hope to meet you in another event someday, and please be in contact if you want to know more about Manuar or VR and AR in vocational training. Thank you.
Even though we can't hear, let's give him a round of applause for the practical use of this technology. And now, without any further ado, once again, one of the most prominent experts in the field of XR across the globe. He's the former chief scientist of Oculus and Huawei, and he has just started as a professor at the University of Oulu. Please welcome to the stage, Stephen M. Laval.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction and the kind invitation to come here and speak to you today. I realize the title of my talk maybe seems a little dark. I took the Xrchallenge word and decided to focus on challenges a lot, and you know, I've also moved to Finland recently, as I'll mention, living up in Oulu in northern Finland, and the winter's coming in, and you know I can feel it. So that's my mood. So I will explain some of the kinds of challenges that we have lying ahead. A little bit of background on myself. Sorry, it's a bit too small, but I've been a professor for many years, worked about 2 decades in the area of robotics, and then became an early founder of Oculus back in 2012 when it was just a handful of people right after their Kickstarter campaign. Worked there until, working especially on head tracking and perceptual problems and things of that nature until 2014 when it was acquired by Facebook. Then I went back to the University of Illinois where I've been a professor for many years, and also a couple of years ago joined Huawei as a vice president and chief scientist for their AR, VR, MR. Perhaps that would be called XR now, so we try to unify things. Interesting story of the people maybe don't know, I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but at the time when we were working for Oculus, there were 2 Oculus locations, one in Irvine, California, and one up in Oulu. These are people working in Irvine. I think that's Palmer Luckey there. And my wife Anna and I were working together out of an apartment. And we even have a robot there with one of the original sensor boards. And we can do very interesting studies while developing the head tracking system. So Finland offers some unique advantages. One of the troubles with these kinds of sensors, these inertial measurement unit sensors, is that they're temperature dependent. And so the people in California were sort of stuck with one, temperature all the time. And it was in January, so I could just open the window to my apartment, put the sensor outside, bring it back in, and then start plotting all the errors and figure out how to compensate for that. So we were able to get very good head tracking by using the old lab. So we did quickly move, after 6 months of working with Oculus from Olu, we quickly moved to California as the company grew. Also just kind of a strange thing, if you take Oculus and you delete the letters C and S, it spells Olu. I don't know what to make of that, but it's really nice thing. There's some hidden kind of thing there. So what am I doing now? Well, I decided I had such a good time in Oulu, I decided to move back there. So I've left the University of Illinois, and I'm now a professor at the University of Oulu. Moved to Finland in June, and hoping to continue to do more XR work and research. One thing I'm building there is something I've been calling a perception engineering lab. I'll explain what that is as this talk goes on. But the idea is there's a kind of coming together of what we normally think of as engineering, the software and hardware problems in XR land. I should say XR, we need to unify it a bit. People are updating their V's and A's to X's. And then there's the human side of it, which is a kind of reverse engineering problem. We did not design ourselves, so we have to understand what exactly is going on inside and put these things together in a very tight and systematic way. And that's some things I want to talk about as I go on here. I find these hype cycle diagrams amusing. I like to look at them every year when they come out. Don't completely know what to make of them, but I certainly like to talk about them. Have people seen Gartner hype cycles before? So let's see, where are we at? So looking at this one, all kinds of things. So this is 2017, there's blockchain there. Augmented reality down in maybe the pit of despair or something. And virtual reality, coming out of the trough of disillusionment, as it's called, and into the slope of enlightenment. Interestingly, this year, it shows mixed reality here, going for a dive. Augmented reality still trying to get out of the pit. And virtual reality did what? I don't know if it disappeared altogether. Did it sort of go off to heaven here? Or is it just not worth talking about anymore? Or did it get absorbed into mixed reality and went backwards? I don't really know, but that's just kind of the state of the art. There are clearly big challenges ahead, and I think when we divide up augmented reality, it's very challenging on the head-mounted display side, and then it's much easier on the handheld, using software kits to do augmented reality on your smartphone as you hold it up. And so that's a great platform and mechanism for exploring augmented reality in the meantime, while the head-mounted display side of augmented reality ends up being very, very challenging. So I find this interesting anyway. So we'll see what the reality holds, or what these hype cycles will look like in a few years. The challenges for consumer products, and I'm mainly focusing on head-mounted displays here. I think the augmented reality ecosystem is doing pretty well with the major players, Google, Apple, Huawei. Many companies have augmented reality kits that people can author great content with. I'm sure many people at this event have done that. In fact, I look forward to seeing what people have done later in the afternoon. So there's always problems of content and comfort and getting rid of wires in these head-mounted displays, and distributing the computation in some appropriate way so that you're not wearing some big heavy device on your face that's doing everything. So how to cleverly distribute the computation all the way back to maybe some cloud, some cloud that's perhaps far away. And we're trying to sort of improve these products to get out of maybe the XR VR winter. I've said this before. In fact, last time I spoke in Tampere, I was thinking like this, and I still think like this. There's sort of 3 E's that are required for product success in this general space. There's the engineering part, which is my background, and it's very easy to just get caught up entirely in that, which is, okay, improve the tracking, the displays, wireless connectivity, the optical systems, GPUs, so forth and so on, and focus entirely on that. And sometimes when you drive too hard in the engineering side, the ergonomic side starts to suffer. And the comfort of these devices ends up being a critical issue, especially when it goes into fatigue and then ultimately sickness issues and things like that. People sometimes don't like to talk about it much, but it's the elephant in the room, as they say, and ends up being very complicated. And of course, there's always the ecosystem problem. If you build something great, will people come and join it? And I think this has probably scared a lot of the major companies in this space to some extent, right? They can invest very, very heavily, and then will the killer apps come out? Will the content come out? Will people find whatever it is the device is good for and cause the whole thing to spread? And that's a very, very difficult thing to do. XR is an extremely broad field, and I think it's very helpful to pick one use case that's very solid, where you have a good business model for it, and then focus everything around that, right? Tailor what you want. Maybe there's one kind of head-mounted display or headset that's out there that's perfectly suited for what you need to do, or it's very close, or maybe something needs to be custom designed or built, which is very challenging to do. But that's the thing to really think about is, even though we've unified everything together under XR, what is it about the particular performance requirements for your particular application that you see, as opposed to kind of just stepping back and saying, well, we'll just sort of launch something out there and see what happens. And that's a very, I think, difficult thing in this extremely broad space, trying to get all three of these E's to work out. One general thing I've seen, going all the way back to the time I was working at Oculus, is that there's a natural tendency, and it makes sense, I call it the recycling problem. People take whatever's lying around and say, oh, I could use this, and they just start putting pieces together. I could use smartphone screens, perfect. I can use game engines to do development, great. So that's all fine, and it gives you a lot of, what do you call it, a feeling of accomplishment very early on. It's like, I can do all of these great things, and then you hit a plateau when the components that already exist don't do what you want. And then comes the really hard work. So this ends up being a very big kind of challenge in this space. For example, I just take a game engine. It'll do many things for you, but if you're not careful, it could also hamper your creativity because it doesn't. It guides you down a certain path. You know, whatever you're doing might kind of look a little bit like a first-person shooter game, whether you like it or not, right? And so even though there's a lot more things they've been doing to generalize and adapt it, it still has that in its DNA, let's say, at the core, for tools like Unity or Unreal Engine. And so if you were to just completely destroy those and have to rebuild from scratch, something completely different might emerge, and it's something to think about. Not everyone has the resources to do that, but just be aware that you're being guided down a path that's already been laid by people who are developing video games for a screen. And sure, it's evolved since then, but there's always that. So that ends up being quite a challenge. And I'll revisit this again later. Let me talk a bit about why I'm excited about what I've been calling perception engineering. And the idea is, let's just go back and look at engineering. Engineering is kind of a boring old term, perhaps, right? It's not the sexiest sounding thing in the modern world of inventing new terms year after year, I think. But I think it's also a very solid foundation and has proven to do great things over many centuries or even millennia. So starting with physics, it gets, let's say, bent. Once you understand the fundamental laws, it gets bent into or reshaped into civil engineering, the constructing of aqueducts and roads and bridges and so forth. Mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, electrical engineering. So these things we know as kind of using our minds and our tools and our capabilities to reshape the laws of physics. Well, we don't change the laws of physics, we apply the laws of physics to make the world do what we want. Computer engineering should fit under there as well. Chemistry goes to chemical engineering, biology goes to bioengineering. What I see going on in this space, very critically, is there's a kind of perception science. There are psychologists, vision scientists, neuroscientists who understand an enormous amount about the human body. People who also know the human physiology very well, all the way into even ophthalmologists will have a lot to say in this space. So there's quite a large science that I think needs to be shaped into a kind of perception engineering in the same way that these other sciences got shaped into branches of engineering. So that's what I think when I put my university hat on and kind of think about the long-term challenges. In fact, I got this idea talking to a Huawei engineer a couple of years ago. I visited the company before I joined, and he said, I have 100 engineers working on, let's say, VR, XR kinds of products, but I don't have one perception engineer. And I don't have someone who really fundamentally understands these human aspects in the things they're trying to build. Like, that's a very, very difficult thing to get. So that's how these things come together. And I think of human physiology as the analog to hardware in the engineering sense, and I think of human perception as the kind of natural analog to the software. So the kind of calculations that are going on in the brain. What exactly is XR? This is the definition from my book, which I'll mention at the end. But I think we're using technology to design, develop, and deliver perceptual experiences that tightly integrate with the human senses. You can make a longer definition, but which is also fine. You're welcome to read. But the main point that I want to make is that you're engineering a perceptual experience. That's the thing that's being designed. And this is kind of a technology agnostic or invariant way to describe it. Because the technology changes all the time. But I think that's what's really going on, where we're trying to design, develop, and deliver perceptual experiences. So that's why it's a kind of perception engineering. So a little bit about this, and so one way I found very helpful to think, and I got this viewpoint a long time ago. I gave a keynote at a VR conference in Germany a couple of years ago, and I went to it and I realized almost everybody there was applying VR to animals, and I didn't even realize that subject existed at the time. I found that pretty amusing. So they had mice running around on ball treadmills. The human scale version of this would be wonderful, right? But the ball would be probably too large. They even went all the way down to having electrodes in a fruit fly, Drosophila. They only have about 100,000 neurons. That's not very many compared to humans, and they're running on little miniature balls. I could not believe it. So it's absolutely incredible. It really helped sort of solidify to me that you're sort of interfering with the mechanisms of the mind or of the brain. And in this particular case, they were trying to study how these animals build place cells and grid cells, which are structures, neural structures that encode places where we've been before. And so VR is doing the same kinds of things to you, and that really is helpful for me in the kind of understanding of things, right? We're just another organism that this is being applied to. They tend to watch panoramic displays here, so that's how it looks. They don't make miniature headsets. They're 1 years already. So human physiology and perception is critical, right? These processes that are going on, as I see you in front of me today, the things that are happening inside my brain's largely invisible, right? I'm not just kind of falling over. I can recognize, I can stand here and start counting how many people there are. I can do a lot of things. I can perceive the world around me seemingly effortlessly. But then when people in engineering, they do use computer vision techniques, they do many other kinds of things, it becomes a very difficult challenge, right? And it's quite puzzling. So the thing to think about is, are you the scientist or the lab rat when you're doing development, right? Which one are you? If you're switching back and forth between them in a careless way, you might be making a mess. So the challenge, as I said before, is reverse engineer the human. Humans also tend to adapt on all scales. So we tend to, as we try things, like, oh, I don't feel sick at all in this headset. Oh yeah, but you've been using it for the last 3 years, and someone new can't really handle it, perhaps. Or maybe someone who's very experienced with playing first-person shooter games in front of big screens has somehow adjusted, perhaps. So people adapt in all different ways. Even just adapting to low light levels in this room, for example, right? People are doing adaptation all the time. So what are these mysterious processes, right? Why is it that we perceive some kind of depth here? This is not even a photograph, right? It's a nice painting, but because of the tiles here, we get some sense of depth, right? We can start imagining how far away some of the people in the back there might be. Even looks a little bit strange. Perhaps the perspective's not perfect, I don't know, but our brains are able to process this. And for quite a bit about the scale, the depth, we know that that's not like a tiny person, right? It's a faraway person. Wow, well, how does that work? Right? So all these things, that's perceptual science, or vision science it's also called. So there are people who study these things very, very carefully. I don't know why that looks like it's moving. Does it look like it's moving to anyone? So very creepy. If I look at it for too long, I even get nauseated. Not even a head-mounted display, and I can get myself nauseated by that, I think. That's another good one. Have you seen this one? All those lines are straight. Do they look curvy? Like there's a bulge in the middle? So that's just your brain doing weird things. So, right, so the problems, and I saw this in my Oculus time, I've seen it at Huawei, I've seen it in many, many other places, and it's not any fault of any sort of one company or group of people, but we tend to alternate between being the scientist and laboratory subject, and it's very easy to be naive about the perceptual issues. People are biased towards liking whatever it is they create. I remember a story, one thing that happened at Oculus a while ago, for example. There was a case where there was an all-black background, and the creator had a menu come rushing up to you. So that's great. The person who created it really liked it. Everybody else got sick. And the reason why is because they didn't understand that the menu was rushing up to them. They thought they were rushing up to the menu. So they had the perception of that they were the one moving. So just having a different knowledge state seems to affect the sickness. So many important things going on like that. You might notice that nobody has menus rushing up to you in these things. Or if they do, they certainly have a lot of background. Like you'd like to observe an entire room around you, and then a menu can come up to you, that's fine. So that's all right. So you have to kind of anchor these things down. Another thing that tends to happen is we need perceptual training to get people to notice the flaws. People have worked in many different areas. You may be inspecting paper quality, or image quality, or you may be inspecting, you may be listening to an audio track and understanding whether or not the compression has destroyed the music in some way. So people get trained to notice these kinds of minor differences or minor problems, or problems that maybe are major but invisible to people who are not trained. And I think this becomes very important. And of course, you need to always recruit human lab rats to try whatever you're doing, who aren't be somehow tarnished by what it is you want to do. As an example, when I worked at Oculus, I first started, I could perceive latency down to about 40 milliseconds. And by the time I was done at Oculus, I could perceive latency down to about 2 milliseconds. And a lot of people don't even believe that, but I trained myself, I would turn my head like this, at about 2 hertz oscillation with very small amplitude, and I would look for a kind of phase shift, much like the way a lot of sensing techniques work. So I trained myself to do that, and then I would teach other people to do that, and it would start to spread. And for many people, it's just invisible, like, I don't know, I just feel a little sick, and that's it. They don't really understand what's happening. So training people to look for the flaws, there's all kinds of other things you can do, like, these are some other examples, like maybe you have stereo mismatch, like the left eye is not getting something that corresponds perfectly to the right eye. Well, just close one eye and see. Like, oh, there's a butterfly in one image and there's not in the other, things like that. If you just have both eyes open, you won't even notice these things. It's very strange. Swapping the left and right eyes is a good thing. That happens a lot if you've ever played with stereo graphics and things like that. So a number of things like this that can be done. So generally speaking, people need perceptual training. Going on to some more perception issues. In the 1990s, we had sort of, let's say everything uninteresting, and then now we have everything interesting. Okay, so we have higher resolution, field of view, frame rates, everything's going really nicely. And then people will say things like, well, our headset is so good that we've beaten the sickness problem. And my answer to them is, well, your headset is so good that you can make people more sick than ever before. Because if it's so good, then there actually are opportunities to really fool the brain, and you can make very sickening or nauseating content. Simple example is if you're sitting in a chair and you, that's a really old Oculus picture, but if you're sitting in a chair and moving your self around, your virtual self around with the controller, then you perceive yourself as moving, but your vestibular organ knows that you're not. So your vision system's telling you you are, your vestibular organ tells you you're not, and people get sick by that. This is a well-known thing by these perceptual scientists called vection, and one needs to limit this quite a bit. So in the HTC Vive system, they have a room-scale VR. People tend to walk around a lot in the content. And they also tend to develop mechanisms for moving yourself virtually by just pointing and landing somewhere else, and then the world just kind of instantly changes. The reason for that is to reduce or eliminate vection. So with this type of vection sickness, you maybe experienced it before if you've ever, if you've all ridden trains before, right? So you may sit in one train and another one's going by, and you feel like you're going backwards for a little bit, even though you're the one not moving. So when something large moves in your field of view, your brain interprets it as you're the one moving, right? So that's the kind of thing that happens. Well, these headsets can get so good, they just keep forcing you into that over and over again. Another thing that's really hard, a lot of people in perceptual science study perception of motion, right? We have motion detectors in our neural structures, and so detection of motion or estimating motion, perception of motion is very, very important. I like to turn it around and call it perception of stationarity. That's very hard to get right in VR. In other words, there's something in a virtual world, it's supposed to be fixed, and when you move around, you look at it from different angles, it should remain fixed. Same thing for an AR smartphone app, right? So is the, I'll take something ancient like Pokemon Go, let's say, right? Is the Pokemon character looking like it's jumping around, or does it really seem like it's fixed when you're looking through your phone, right? So perception of stationarity ends up being a very big challenge because there are many moving parts in the physical world, and you have to fool your eyes and your brain into thinking that something did not move, right? So if I turn my head back and forth, and I'm looking through a screen here, all of you would be moving back and forth on the screen. But it has to be perfectly synchronized so that my brain thinks you're the one staying still. Otherwise, I feel like I'm moving again, and there's a problem. So that gives you an example of the kinds of challenges we have. There's, of course, the great challenge of getting more and more resolution. Ideally, you should have about 60 pixels per degree, and then that gets to the thresholds of human perception. It also depends on things like brightness and contrast and the pixel fill rates and all kinds of extra things, but that's just kind of one rule of thumb. We're getting better and better all the time, but there's still quite a ways to go to get to, let's say, if you use like an Oculus Rift style or HTC Vive style display with a lens, then you need at least a couple thousand pixels per inch out of a display panel. And there's other problems with displays. Again, there's field of view needs to be higher. There's lens distortion problems. And one of the biggest ones is vergence accommodation mismatch. So if I look closely at my finger, then my eyes are supposed to be refocusing based on the vergence of my eyes. So vergence is the convergence of the eyes, and then accommodation is a fancy vision science word for focus or refocusing. So you're supposed to refocus. I'm 50 years old now, so my eyes don't refocus anymore too well, and I need reading glasses. But that's what's supposed to happen. The funny thing is, when I look in a VR headset now, I can put something very close to my face, and it looks very sharp without reading glasses. Because everything is really focused at infinity, or perhaps very far away, inside of these headsets. And so that's what's kind of funny about it. I don't need reading glasses in VR, but then the resolution's not high enough anyway, usually, so I have trouble reading. So that's a very fundamental problem. So what I think has happened here, again, this is like the recycling problem. There's a kind of steep acceleration. Everyone's really excited. They've been able to build many headsets and devices and things. But now we're in a kind of, I would say, display plateau where it's getting very, very hard, and it requires huge amounts of investment and patience and time to make progress beyond whatever we can do with our smartphone screens. I can sample some stuff that's out there. There's Vario here in Finland, which is one of the best headsets around that I've tried. Very interesting. They use some micro display technology to be able to, at least in the center place where you're looking, provide retina display resolution, so you don't really see the pixels. Very, very sharp. So you can sit in VR and read text. Very cool. Now, how to make it so that the entire field of view is like that, I don't know. But so far, this is one of the best headsets in the world. Very interesting work they're doing based in Helsinki. Many of you know this company probably, and I think they're here also. All right. And foveated rendering is another part of it here, where people are saying, well, maybe we can't get it to be sharp everywhere, but we can at least get it sharp enough in the place where you're looking. But then that involves eye tracking, and then there's latencies involved in that, and then who knows? Does it all work? Probably. I think NVIDIA has a system that's working pretty well. I've heard about it in some prototype forms and things like that. So there's some stuff around. So everyone's tinkering around with what's called foveated rendering to try to at least deliver very high resolution content. Because even if you have the display and it was high field of view with very high resolution, that's too demanding for computers, for graphics systems, GPUs, and all of the shaders and everything else that has to be done. So foveated rendering can help alleviate that if you can get the eye tracking working well enough in the whole system with low enough latency. If you go more to the AR and MR side, then there's still extreme display challenges as well. So we all want to have some kind of cool see-through glass. And then, of course, you can just flip something down to cover the glass if you'd like to have a fully, block out the outside world and have it be more like VR. And then we have trouble with trying to get trying to get the field of view to go larger. And, basic waveguide principles, I'm not going to teach anything deep here, but, there's a source display and there's, let's say, a bunch of bouncing around of light, where about 90% of it is lost in the bouncing around process, and then it ends up on your eyes. So very difficult to make these displays bright enough. The waveguides themselves are kind of heavy, and a lot of effort has been poured into that. And still, the state of the art, HoloLens a little bit old now, but fairly narrow field of view, and the famous billion-dollar investment startup company Magic Leap finally has released the supposedly the most mind-blowing headset ever, and it's a little better. But so it's very, very tough there. Very harsh, I would say. And I don't think it's because any of these people are dummies, right? There's very smart people working very hard on this. I've talked fairly recently with Bernard Kress at Microsoft, leading optical engineer, one of the best in the world, who did quite a bit of work on the Microsoft HoloLens. I hear that quite a bit of work was done in Finland on the Microsoft HoloLens too, but I don't know. I don't know how well. I think that's true, right? I don't know all the details of that.
It's not a secret.
It's not a secret. Oh, thank you. Okay, good. So yes, hooray for Finland. That's good. So that's what I thought. Yeah, I heard quite a bit of that system was designed, but I don't know how it all got divided up and then what ultimately was done, because it's not my, I don't have that knowledge. Very good. But nevertheless, we would certainly like to have much more than this for the field of view. Another way to do it is with very fast video pass-through. I've seen some very good systems like that. I know if you look on Vario's web pages, they have a headset that does that. I've also tried one from VRvana until it was acquired by Apple. Now I don't get to try it anymore. But those are wonderful. If you get the latency very low and a very high field of view camera, the video pass-through there is really outstanding. But then you're back to a heavy headset again. This is a very exciting technology, direct retina projection. Has anyone heard of this kind of thing? So the idea here is take something like, I had my smartphone, but then Oh, maybe I can grab that back. Is it just sitting there on the desk or not? No, it's not. Okay, that's fine. Well, what I wanted to say is, you imagine my hand as a mirror, and then you take a laser, and you could point a laser in your eye. That'd be really cool, right? And then you start drawing stuff on your retina, right? And moving the laser is kind of a pain, so you can maybe take a mirror and then just start wobbling it around, and then you can draw pretty patterns on your retina. That should work, right? So what does it require? Well, it requires I'd say very small beam, and also very low power, so you don't start frying your eyeballs, right? So it turns out that kind of stuff exists now. One interesting sort of demo was given by Intel, this product called, or a potential product called Vaunt, and then they canceled the whole thing right after they showed it off, so you might have noticed that, which is very kind of sad to see that happen. But this involves directly beaming laser light into your retina. You can look down a bit and you can see some, I think it was red text or content and stuff like that. It's very similar to CRT monitors, which would have a beam that draws out the images line by line on the screen. Instead, you can have things drawn out line by line on your retina. And the question is, can the lasers get sort of good enough, safe enough, sharp enough, and can mirrors or whatever other technology you use get fast enough to make it all work? And I think there's been a lot of great progress on that. In fact, Brighter Wave right here in Tampere has probably one of the best lasers, maybe the best laser in the world for this kind of thing. So very exciting possibilities on this front. I'm very excited about this because I'd really like to have the whole thing be like this, just some simple glasses. Maybe those glasses aren't my style exactly, but you get the idea. It looks a lot better than wearing HoloLens or Magic Leap or other things like that. It looks better than those things. All right. Also, there's this divergence accommodation mismatch problem. There's people working on varifocal lenses so that you can do refocusing. That requires eye tracking as well. So if your eyes are converging, then you can move the lenses a bit, and hopefully they respond fast enough. And so Oculus built a half-dome, very high field of view. I think it was, I forgot the degrees of what do you call it, the field of view. I think it's at least 120 degrees. Of course, just looking straight forward, human vision system has about 210 degrees, so it's very hard to even get that with these kind of designs. I don't see how you can do it without wrapping a screen around. I'm just about finished here, and then I can take some questions if there's time for that. Again, on perception, there's the huge interaction problem. Most people seem to be going for some kind of one-on-one tracking, but you notice the computer mouse doesn't work like that. The PC mouse, which was fundamental to the early days of Apple, building the entire company around that. And I want to know kind of what's the 3D version of the mouse. I want to know how to extend my perception of myself so that in VR, XR land, I see my body doing all kinds of, I see my virtual body doing all kinds of things that seem quite powerful, but I'm not overexerting myself by doing it, right? If I could have a long rubbery arm that just reaches all the way back to the room and grabs something and pulls it back, why not, right? It could be so cool that eventually you never want to come back to the real world, right? Which is maybe sad and unfortunate, but anyway, but that's, there's a lot of great use cases here, a lot of interesting problems, and as you study particular things, just keep in mind that the goal isn't necessarily to make one-to-one perfect correspondence between, say, your hands, your body, and what's going on in virtual worlds or augmented worlds and so forth. There can be all kinds of different correspondences, and your brain will learn that mapping. That's also part of perception and physiology. It fits very well in there. Perception in panoramas is very interesting. There's a lot of panoramic streaming work going on. Those tend to be flat, but we still perceive a lot of 3D information from them, so a lot of interesting things to study there. What I want to understand generally, and I can go from vision to audio, touch, even crazy things like smell and taste. I don't know, I don't want to talk about vestibular stimulation. I tried that once and regretted it. But each of these has these perceptual psychology components, and what I want to understand is the human-based performance metrics to really understand these things. I have a free book. You're welcome to download. Should be hopefully published soon by Cambridge University Press, and it mixes these kinds of things together as I've been talking about. And I'm still a roboticist, so I really would like to mix XR and robots. Hopefully do some of that up at the University of Oldham. So if you or you know some people who are looking for doing PhDs and postdocs and doing some academic style fun, send them my way. Thank you.
Very nice. Now, did you say that you'd be okay taking some questions? We have time?
Absolutely. I just assumed that I was running out of time.
No, we were so far ahead of schedule that we have time, lots of time for questions. So,
I'm
any
a useful time absorber.
That's great. Yeah, right here.
Hello. What do you think about the AR, the using a see-through display like a HoloLens type of the thing, or then using closed display and cameras? Pros and cons.
Yeah, pros and cons, it's very good. And we go back to this display plateau, right? So if we get out of the display plateau, suppose a retinal projection works beautifully in 5 or 10 years, then wow, that's superior. You know, it's so light, low battery power, all kinds of things really work out nicely for that. Or if the waveguides improve enough, maybe they get lighter, they get high enough field of view, I really find that superior in a lot of ways. On the other case, when you have the video pass through, it's going to be heavier and bulkier, but once you survive that, let's say, you have total control over anything, right? I can take any pixel and make it do anything I want. And there have been some very nice custom ways to get the latency in those, I would say, so low that they're fine. They hit the right perceptual criteria. I was concerned about that a couple of years ago. And then with VRvana and some other companies, I've been convinced now. I've tried it too. And as I said, I can perceive latency quite well. And it's very impressive, very powerful. When you see a large field of view with mixed reality, it's so beautiful. You know, it's very nice. So in the short term, those are the better kinds of solutions. In the long term, if these exotic display technologies pan out, that's going to crush everything.
Another question for Stephen? Not every day you get a chance to ask a question directly from him, unless you live in Oulu now. No further questions? No? Anything else you'd like to say before? Oh, wait. Oh.
Yeah.
The very end part of your speech was interesting. The perception things, one-to-one.
Oh, yes.
Have you any research concerning about how if you change the relationship different to physics, for example, your digital avatar, that it's not like your real human template, but something else, or it behaves differently. How does this behave to the sensation of owning the particular?
It's a very good question. It's some kind of research that I would like to do or get into, and I can make a couple of comments about it. One thing to look at is a very old thing called Fitz's law, which was used in the development of the PC mouse. And it's just some very simple criterion to try to study efficiency. How fast can people point and click at, let's say, randomly appearing boxes of different sizes on a 2D display. I'd love to see like Fitz law-based kind of reasoning in three-dimensional space to try to judge what kind of motor programs can be easily learned by the human. There's also the amount of training required, right? How long did it take to learn how to do a mouse the first time? A 2-year-old has no trouble. Grown-ups, when they started using the mouse, I don't know. It varied quite a bit, maybe. But it's not ridiculously complicated, right? It doesn't require like 6 months of training. So how much training is required? Another kind of general thing, that one way to evaluate your kind of question that I've been fascinated with is what if we change our scale? So what if I make it so that I just scale myself down so that I'm 10 centimeters tall in virtual reality? And if I do that and I drop an object, it will not fall in the same way, will it? Because the amount of time it takes for something 10 centimeters high to fall is much less than it does for something, let's say, a meter or so high to fall, right? Or if I'm 1.83 meters high and then fall, whatever. So the physics, if you shrink yourself down, I think Hollywood gets this wrong. If you shrink yourself down, the whole behavior of the physical world around you will be quite bizarre and different. And to really figure out and simulate what that looks like, it's very hard to use a typical game engine for that too, because it's not designed for rescaling yourself. Again, if you made yourself a giant Godzilla character and you dropped an object, you should see it fall very slowly, right? It won't seem quite right. Can you walk around like that? You know, how is that going to work? I don't really know. I'm curious to try that. So just changing scale is one simple thing we can do to explore that. And of course, you can make yourself into a bird or, you know, all kinds of things and ask these sort of questions.
Great question. Yeah. Another question? Yeah.
Thank you, Steve. Great speech, and I'm happy that we agree that there's a lot of good knowledge in Finland.
Absolutely, that's why I'm here. And I love wintertime.
So, as do we all. That's why we're here. So, my question is, if you think from a perspective of an executive in an industrial company, now what kind of things would you look at this technology spectrum at the moment? Because laser in your eye, it's not viable at the moment.
Right.
You cannot go to production with that. But what do you think? You have been trying a lot of different stuff. You have been playing around with this for decades. So what is there? What can be used? What do you think?
Well, it's such a broad question, right? I find a lot of companies focusing on let's say what we call more the verticals than the broad consumer market, right? And rather than trying to catch all of the masses into using their clever app, they seem to focus on doing one thing really well, right? So there may be some, let's say the category of virtual prototyping, or it could be, you know, that could even include real estate visualization kinds of things, which I know are popular in Finland. These kinds of things, I think the technology is good enough that it's already much better than looking at it on a screen. I know one example in, so at the University of Oulu, I'll be working with very closely with Professor Timo Ojala, who's the director of the Center for Ubiquitous Computing there. And one of the things they did as part of urban planning is they were proposing to put some kind of cover over the street in 2030, 2040. I assume they do the same kinds of things in Tampere, right? They make these plans of what the city's going to look like some years in the future. I don't think we do that in America, right?
Not to my knowledge.
Never seen anything like that before. So that's great. But in any case, they actually went to the location in the city where they were proposing it, sat people down with VR headsets, they put it on in the same location, and they went and looked at things. And they found out that their favorite design was actually not so good because the ceiling was too low, and it gave people too much of a kind of claustrophobic feeling. And they had no way of really experiencing that without going into VR. So the technology is good enough for like that use case. Right? So I think if you're clever about it, you find something, you find a niche or a need, and stick to that, and then wait out the display plateau and all these other kinds of things, perhaps. Right? Another way to wait out the display plateau is to find really good smartphone AR apps alone, right? And you can debug and test a lot of things, and perhaps that'll take off enough. And then when people are tired of carrying the phones around a few years down the road, hopefully there'll be some nice wearable displays that'll be comfortable. So that's another thing you could do in the short term is development on AR smartphone platforms. Hopefully that ecosystem is going well. I haven't analyzed it too much in the last year or so, but I think it's going well.
Another great question. I think we're at the point where we don't have any more time for questions right now, but I'm sure Stephen will be around if you want to talk to him face to face, maybe slip your business card into his hand. He said he's looking for partners up in Oulu, so if you don't mind moving up there. But right now, I think that before we go for a coffee break, we had something real quick to present.
I'll be here all day, by the way. So
Yeah, he'll be here all day. Yeah. Round of applause, of course, for Stephen. All right, cool. So we're going to take a quick 30-minute coffee break, and be sure that you come back right at 2:45 because we have two great speakers after the break. And during the break, and of course, again, after this whole session in here is finished, you can check out those 30 different companies with their demos in the exhibition hall right next door. One more round of applause for our finalists and our winners. And of course, Stephen LaSalle. And Haney is presenting him with a token of appreciation from Business Tampere. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in 30 minutes, right back here at 2:45 to keep going.
Kaikenlaista sähkösuunnittelua vuoden päästä. Sivusta katsotaan on hauskalta, kun sitten kauhean kauan tulee ne hienot tilat. Mene. Jotain päätöksiä. Hyvä syy.
The space itself. Like a relativity thing.
iso oivallus, että avataan muitakin aisteja mukaan.
I haven't gone too far down this path of collaborating with them. I just happened to have a really nice book on like motor learning when I was going to read it's interesting, but that's about where my
thesis fitting from
Are you the guy?
and this whole thing is
You are. You're second. Or you first?
He's first.
First. Okay. Let me ask you a quick question.
I most often talk to business people, and then the perception of people aren't around, so I feel like I'm carrying their. Some people know it already.
So I will introduce you. I'm just going to give a very brief welcome back. Sits down. We're all ready to go. I don't have anything on these.
Cinematics like Hollywood and things like that. It took decades to develop techniques that make a story look plausible on the screen. Everyone's on the I don't think they didn't follow everything that it's trial and error. Now you have this extreme, you're wearing it on display, an extreme kind of
currently studying a master's degree in technology, governance management in Xrchallenge University of Applied Sciences. And I was awarded with one of the student track prizes.
It really feels to me like my fingers. I don't know what that means. You never feel like overheating. So once you're not general.
He's doing all that.
If you take me on like that, I don't. I may not always be there for you. Sorry about
Tuolla oli se Tuomas Hepponen.
Se voi olla vähän nopeasti. Ja sit siitä olisi hieno saada se.
Mä en oo kuullut sit Jörnistä mitään vastaan. Ei se silti mä niinku luotan siihen.
Ei oo täällä. Se on täällä kehittämässä teknologiaa Helsingissä.
Itse toimin.
Joo, no nyt täällä aika paljon kahvia tuossa Presiksellä ja laitosmuuten. Se on aika pitkälle.
Across all industries, transformation is key to growth. Across all industries, transformation is key to growth, and designing new spaces involves detailed planning.
Alto was also very interested, but their schedule was a little bit slower and I didn't know as many people, so it was, moving from America was a challenge, so there were a lot of people helping me. Oh yeah, there we go, sure. Yeah. If I move my family again, they'll kill me. And this is already an enormous move, so, and they're very happy. But I'm close, I'm in Finland. So.
You mentioned about the animal safety in Has there been any studies with VR and synesthesia in humans?
There must be, but I don't know. I would be surprised if there's not, because I've never done it.
Because they sound something like similar.
When I was writing my book, I was kind of poking around in it 2 or 3 years ago.
Anyway, thanks for
Okay. I've seen that happen. And what really scares me is, Oculus bought for $3 billion, right? And then they pour ridiculous amounts of money, bribing developers to make all these money, and that's crazy. And there's no killer app. And I know a lot of kind of bad choices were made because they were looking at all the lens. Recycled the tools and things.
Similarly for Magic Leap, they spend a whole lot of money on software. They also on the optics, but there's no compelling content or any kind of application where you absolutely
I should say that, but that's one thing I find very attractive about there's a lot of emphasis on healthcare, a lot of VR for motion cases, which I find very exciting. I just wasn't too excited about the GC stuff. I was nevertheless, I was hoping the kids make their headset work, but it wasn't just I really feel inspired by these things. I'm Steve Laval at you can guess my name out that. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. Or I just might send you an email. I knew you people were around somewhere. I've never been committed. Well, that's all right. I did. I finished my PhD in no, that's really great. I was wondering how to curious about all the stuff that's going on. So that's really great. So I'm glad you found me. If I can edit out all this. Which kind of things are you doing? What kind of headsets?
Healthcare opportunities for our school and teaching, and now it's entirely blown out of Canada. I work at but we also built architectural models from Liverpool and brought it to
Does your app involve some kind of self-motion very much, or do you sit in one place and also do it?
It's not just our app, it's any program.
So if you try like an HTC Vive demo app where you just kind of walk around and it's if you're already done.
Yes. And I've been doing this for a year now. It's like 10 minutes and that's what I was wondering.
Is it more fatigue or not?
Well, it goes longer than 10 minutes than but the thing is that we were talking about literature and well, I can't watch the movies either because my brain sees through the
And that's the Virgin's accommodation mismatches there too. Hollywood once had the things very close to you and then they started putting them further away. A lot of fatigue. I don't know about nausea for that case, but 3D movies don't anywhere.
well, I wanted that twice because it was so it's like my brain sees through the brain does not want to add that. It's very stubborn.
In some sense, that's a gift, you know, because you can see a lot of things when other people are blind, and that's great. But you know, it does have the side effect.
Yeah, I work with this. I really want to
I don't know. I think the biggest thing you see is variation across people in general. There's also some there seems to be some solid evidence that women on average are sicker than men using these things. And it's very hard to normalize that or factor that back out because you got to not take into account the fact that maybe more men are playing first-person shooter games. I don't think that's it. I think it has to do with, and I don't know. The results are there, but there's also I think women seem to have better use of peripheral vision, if I'm not mistaken. And it's bizarre how that maybe is geometry. I don't know, some different neural wiring. I don't understand. So if that's the case, then maybe there's these kind of triggers because the further out you get in the periphery, the more the distortion is. So one thing you can do as an experiment was try to limit the field of view and see if by just cutting it down, it makes it a lot more comfortable. Which is a bummer. It's too bad.
I'm also with the NCC, but I see so real. But I also see the red lights flickering, you know. So I guess I'm hypersensitive for that system.
Okay.
So that's why I was interested about the latency thing, because if that's something to do with it, then like you want to do it there.
I wonder if like these fast LCD displays might be more helpful. So the OLEDs are flickering. LED and that's very close to CRT monitors. So if I don't know if you ever suffered through CRT monitors too much, but when people had big screens and the refresh rate was say 72 hertz, I could see flickering a lot, especially on the peripheral. It's very sensitive. And then when they got up to about 90, it seems fine for most people. So for a few crazy people, they still need higher than 90 or 100 or something like that. And so if you can perceive that flickering, it's very. Yeah, again, it's I guess it's a double-edged sword. It's like a gift, but well. You know.
And it can be about that playing.
I
think playing games for the last 30 years.
And those make it easier.
Well, I think, well, I have a decent monitor, but then that's not the virtual world, so I need to, it doesn't read my mind.
There are so many things going wrong in a be interesting to try to figure out which factors are more dominant. Like this is a factor, so I can even try it LCD. So we have displays in some headsets. I cannot maybe the Oculus Go is. I'm not promoting that. I don't know which is. In fact, exactly. No, I'm not. But I also honestly I get pretty sick on my first and last year I was running around in China. I got sick and damaged my vestibular organ, and so I was stiff on the right, so I had to kind of walk around for several months. And now my brain is fine, but even like in reality, a lot of the time so it's like that's my fate. I guess I help other people with reality that's on the world. The world not looking at like eventually my brain is like that. It's not nauseating. Well, I don't know. What are all the different factors? Resolution, maybe the LCD one is I think the pixels are always kind of on. Oh yeah. I don't. I can just explain it to you. And I would love to like even do a whole course. Oh, that's okay. It always happens. But yeah, it's really just so the reason why the amplitude is so high is because there was so much optical distortion. So you make the amplitude very small. And then you have to like look at something in the room. Fix it. That shit. See, right now it's swimming. Is that about 2 hertz? If you go too fast, then the headset starts moving. If you go too slowly, then it's faster. So I just kind of do that. I just see whenever it's just like, it's not a phase. That's it. I just practice and try it. I would get pretty good. I'd be like, oh yeah, that one's probably about 13 milliseconds. It was like desperation. I spent way too much time. I remember going down to the lunch cafeteria and like looking at the menu and going, I was going like this in the real world. And I don't know if I was adapting to the headset. And I think I was. There's something called so you know this is be a little awkward. So yeah, that's a very short circuit wire. Put something in front of you and you fix it on your eyes and how to rotate. And that's very important. You can't turn it off. It's like it's really crazy because it bypasses your brain. You can't think. So that's crazy. There's something called the VOR, which is like how many degrees it adjusts based on and it can adjust for latency. Constant latency, more comfortable. So your brain will just adapt. And then all of a sudden you can say, oh, then you start going, readjust it. It's the same as prism. You take it off and the world's upside down. So that kind of thing is happening all the time. A whole lot better. Which again, you may have a gift that one, it can screw up people's human social experiments. So you be the outliers that always fails, and that's fine. But they should not remove you from the study. The interesting thing is it must be probably ideal for this person that you can find all of these if you can stand it. I understand. Some gifts are burdensome. Maybe you'll find the right way to use that talent.
Yeah, well, it's all about being right place at the right time, so that with the right people. So.
I would love to figure out what the talent part is, like what part is most sensitive to it. Flickering of the frame.
Okay,
I can't offer the experiment. I don't have a source to use it.
Anyway, I'm going to let you but thank you for your presentation. And if you ever come to Canada, we would love to have you. To where? Canada, it's about less than an hour drive. But no, I have to think too. I just practically one way south. Yeah, it's not that far. It's about an hour drive in the car from here, 45 minutes to train. Yeah, so I work there at the University of Applied Sciences, and they're basically doing a lot of VR, AR, yeah, and I always get to look at you. You don't look like a nerd. But yeah, that's basically what I do. And it would be a pretty pleasant to have you visit one day with you. Yeah, but the same thing that I do. Ne voi hämmentyä.
Joulupukki koristettua etelämaissa. Roikkuista. Niin noin.
En mä tiedä, mitä siinä on. Sen verran se on
So you have everything all set up here for yourself. My welcoming back is in. Just say, hey everyone, welcome back. Have fun. Great. And then I'll bring you on. I just really the backsplash.
Niin, laitettiin harvaan se samalla paikalla sitten. Nää. Niin.
Was someone announcing there? She just did great. I just texted her about it. That must be for the second place. I think we can take it. There's no name on it.
There's no name on it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the seminar sessions. I hope you enjoyed your coffee break and got a chance to go check out the exhibition hall. A lot of great stuff over there. If you're sitting on one of the ends of the rows, as people so often love to do, if you don't mind moving in a couple of seats, because we're going to have people still, wandering in as we keep going, and then that way they have a place to sit without making too much of a distraction. Very nice, thank you. All right, and we're back and we're ready to keep going. Up next we have our next speaker, and you probably were already made aware of this, but there was a change in the program. Seppo Honkanen could not be here, but instead we have here with us Antti Kuosmanen, who is the business group lead for Microsoft Surface. He's been doing mixed reality for 2 years, and he's worked on the HoloLens and the Windows mixed reality, amongst a bunch of other things, and he'll talk to you a little bit today about some of those things and more. So please, nice warm round of applause. Welcome for Antti, everybody. Antti.
I hope you can hear me. So hi, so my name is Antti Kuosmanen. I work for the Microsoft Finland, or Microsoft OY. I'm the Surface, as was introduced, the Surface Business Group Lead, but I've been working for Microsoft now over 10 years, and for different business areas of it. And I was asked to make a concrete pitch, well, not a pitch, but a presentation on how do we make this concrete. I was watching the previous presentation, and that's exactly, we go very high, very quickly. So I want to ground it down to the realities of today, the realities of digitalization, and what does it actually mean? What are the steps we need to do before we can start adding holograms or virtual reality as an everyday part of our modern workplace in the future? I'm going to show you some of the cool stuff that we always do, but before I get into that, future things, I want to start talking about this in the context of digitalization. Because I would argue that's the reason why we're actually doing this. I don't think anyone wants to do it just, well, maybe some people want to do it just because it's cool technology. But what we really want to achieve is, how do we make our processes better? How do we make our products better? How do we make the interactions with our customers and our employees better? It's all about bringing these 4 pillars of digitalization together. And when you start thinking about the circle, it's all about data. End of the day, it's data flowing from operations, from your customers, from your employees, and from your services and products. But just gathering, excuse my French, but crap load of data doesn't actually help anyone. You want to do that, you want to do something with that data. You want to do something meaningful with that data. And that's where the interesting part comes in. When you start adding intelligence, everybody talks about AI, artificial intelligence. I prefer added intelligence. Because when you start bringing the data into a decision vehicle for your business, how do you engage with your customers, or how do you empower your employees, or how do you digitalize your processes, that's when you really start delivering business value. And it's all about creating this digital loop. This is what, this is when we look at it from digitalizing any business, this is really what we're doing. And from that added intelligence, using the data, we can start doing actions. We can start transforming the products quicker than we want to take to market. We can create a flexible organization that is actually a learning organization. We can break down the barriers of communications from hierarchical communications into a more social media context of communications. So really narrowing down from first line workers to the boardroom and bring that information together. And I wanted to start out with this because I wanted to bring us down to the level of, you know, what is real? What do we want to achieve? Because there's three areas of business when we look at digitalizing the businesses. It's, you know, information worker, your boardroom, and your first line worker. What I see quite a bit is these two, the boardroom and the information worker, which seems easier. But when we look at all the business cases for mixed reality or AR, VR, any version of R as you want to throw in there, we normally look at first line workers. I want to tell you why. Because the first line workers, I like the English term because it's not a Finnish term for first line workers. Believe me, we're trying to find one. There isn't. Because they are the people that are out there. They're meeting your customers. They're working on the plant floor. They're the ears and eyes of the organization. That's where you get the signals in. If we forget this part of digitalizing our business, are we really doing it then? Because creating meaningful information for a maintenance person going on site beforehand actually helps you to do your everyday work better. If you can even record what you did and share it with everybody else and translate it to another language using AI, that's when you start spreading information. You spread your learnings throughout the organization. And there's some data points that I'm going to touch when we go forward. But looking at the first line worker scenarios in the context of digitalization, there's these 5 pillars or 5 areas that are very common. The first one, foster culture community. This sounds a very fluffy and soft thing. But what it actually means is, if you want to create a digital culture in your organization, you can't just limit to the information workers and your boardroom. Because every single person getting into a digital era, every person in the organization needs to have a corporate digital identity. I'm going to come back to this term. Everybody needs to have an identity in the conversations and the ability to communicate in an intelligent way with the rest of the organization. Training and upskill employees. This is super important. When we start looking at flexibility of organizations and the ability to absorb changes quickly, this is crucial. How can we do it at the plant level when something changes and we need to shift, I don't know, these folks to here very quickly and retrain them? Or you go on site and you need an expert help, that you have the help at hand when you need it, regardless of time and space. And you multiply that learning experience to the rest of the organization. At the end of the day, when you look at the business outcomes, it's minimizing risk and cost as well. Because you don't want to have, if you got this lot doing job A and you lot doing job B, and you're all off sick, how do we scale it? So, when we look at this from the business impact point of view, the first line worker and how well we digitalize in general the workforce actually impacts the performance of the company. And this is, I'm going to look at this from 2 points of view. This is from sort of top down. Next slide, we're going to look at it from the end user perspective. How well have we done it in Finland, for example? We are blurring the work and life for first-time workers when we go forward. And the people that are now entering, the millennials that are entering the workforce, they're making decisions based on what is the experience that your company can offer them. Is it out of this world or out of 70s? And somebody told me that everybody's competing for the best talents. That's a way of differentiating yourself from your competition. Better user experience gives better customer service and customer experience. And I heard somebody say that, somebody who's far smarter than I am, that the term customer is always right. It doesn't actually apply anymore, or it applies, but it's more meaningful is employee is always right. The employee experience is always right. Better experiences, better customer experiences. So what I did was, being proactive me, I reached out to some of the unions. I reached out to PAM, which is the Union for Service Industry, and I asked for data points. Have you done any studies on your members of your union from digitalization point of view? And what I got was, first of all, they said that it's actually SAK did a similar one, and the data is more or less the same. So that's why I'm showing it to you, so it does apply to manufacturing as well. So what we can see is a lot of employers are asking for the first-time workers to start using smart devices. That's great. But what else we can see is only 18% are involved in the whole process. So we don't empower the end users in the process. You don't get any training, apparently. And the usability isn't even taken into account. But over half say transforming their job in a digital way actually make it more enjoyable. Because you can do more things. Not just whatever you were doing today, but you can reskill, and all the arguments that I said before. This study was done this year, I think it was May timeframe. That was a bit of a shock. I mean, it looks like what we've done, and just to simplify, is like, here's a device, there's an app, it's fun, you're digitalized. Done it. Damn. Nobody asked you what you wanted it to do, but there you go. So, before getting into the coolness of things, I wanted to ground this down, as I said. And we need to start from somewhere. I think walking would be nice. I've never done an ultra marathon, but it sounds like a lot of work. Many marathons in a row. I can run 100 meters. I'm exhausted after that. But if I have to do a marathon tomorrow, I would not be able to do it. And that's why we're super hung up on what is the technology that we're going to use, what is the killer app or thing that we're going to do, but nobody's thinking about what is it actually we want to achieve from the business point of view. I know everybody's thinking about it, but how do we start the journey? And don't take this as a roadmap by Microsoft. It's sort of my vision on what I hear from the folks in the industry and what I hear out there. So we can start digitalizing these workers already in a meaningful way. 5 years' time, all around mixed reality is going to take over. I guess. Going forward, Xrchalenge, some kind of brain wave activity things are going to be out there, so you don't need any glasses anymore. I probably need it because I'm half blind, so I don't see much. So that's why I think when we think about the steps of going forward, I would start by walking before we start doing the ultra marathon. And just as I wanted to throw in my advertising here, I mean, it's just a simple thing of the corporate identity means that if I'm working on a plant floor, for example, beginning of the shift, I pick up my, for example, Surface Go, it's a €500 device, I sign in with my face or with my ID card, and it's my personal device for the period of that shift. Then I return it. Next guy or girl comes along, takes the device, and can start using it. But then you're somebody in the corporate digital community. You're not a seller A or B or C throwing ideas out there. But actually it's me, Antti Kuosmanen, participating in the social engagement within the company. Sounds simple, but I know for a fact that we haven't done it. We haven't done it. So moving on to the coolness of things, the mixed reality of the world. I don't know if everybody knows what's HoloLens. There are a few examples out there, but just to give you a brief description of it. HoloLens is a mixed reality device. It's a Windows device. So all the applications, all the work you do when you start walking now, on your Windows or your Surface device, it's all applicable here. We're future-proof. Doesn't mean that you do a funny thing here and do some appy stuff and then everybody else is doing their own thing. It's all on the same platform. Just want us to be clear on that. So it's the first and actually the only device out there in the market that is completely untethered. So there's no cables. You can walk around anywhere. It's completely mobile. It's been out in the market for a couple of years already. And the cool thing is the optics is actually designed, and they do the R&D in Finland. Maybe we should put a swan sticker or something. So, mixed reality as a term, because I see this different terms. Believe me, I get confused because nobody's sort of set on terms yet. But just the way that Microsoft describes mixed reality, it's not only us, it's a broader term as well, is when you have two spectrums of reality. One is completely immersed in virtual reality, and one is our physical reality. And a mixture of these two is mixed reality. I used to have a slide, but I think it's easier just to show you guys what it is. And the power of Windows mixed reality is you can move around the spectrum depending on the use case or what you need. You're not stuck on one place of this is it. It's all AR. It's all VR. Whatever it is. Your business outcomes should be defining the way that you use it. And what HoloLens does is it's aware of your surroundings. So he knows where it is in position. So he knows there's a wall there, there's a floor there. You can put virtual objects that are, it's fooling my brain basically. Saying that there's a chair or there's a plant here. And there's 6 common scenarios that we found out that are popping up all the time when we discuss with our customers. And there's a few that I want to talk about today because there was an announcement by Microsoft last night, and you're probably going to be the first ones to see the videos as well. There were 2 applications on mixed reality that were announced by Satya Nadella, the CEO, last night on the blog. And they are on spatial mapping and planning, and remote collaboration and assistance. And the reason why I picked these ones is because 99% of the time, these are the 2 scenarios that people are interested in. And by the way, those are the scenarios that you can start doing already with the existing devices. That's a €5,000 device. That's a €500 device. Multiply that by 100,000 or how many people you have working in the organization. Even I can do the quick math on that. You start walking before you start doing the ultra marathon. But there's other things. Simulating trainings. Crime scenes, for example. Any type of operating a machine. Japan Airlines are using this to train their engineers. Because you can replay different scenarios easily because you're overlaying holograms on your physical world. So it's a super inexpensive way to do that. It's a heads-up, you can use it as a heads-up, hands-free display. Apparently Ukrainian army is using it to see through tanks. Don't ask me why. Or data visualization. There was a good example inside the expo on this. They did it on mixed reality, on Windows mixed reality, on the immersive experience of it. So the VR headsets. That's super easy to export to or import to HoloLens. What they did, they overlaid data from a forest and the condition of the forest so they can help whoever is managing that forest to cut down the right trees. I hope I got it right. You can easily bring that to the cockpit of that machine that is going around the forest and deciding which trees are to be cut, because you can overlay virtual reality data with the physical world. And the owner of the forest can be in a cafe with a immersive headset and seeing what's going on in his forest. So, I'm going to play you a video on the remote collaboration and assistance. And as I said, this was announced last night, so I need to read it because I bound to forget the right name for the app. It's Dynamic 365 Remote Assist. Let's play the tape and discuss after that.
No matter where you work or what you do, collaboration is the key to success. When challenges arise, you need the right people with the right expertise. But bringing people together isn't always easy, and travel is not always an option. With Microsoft Remote Assist, help is always a moment away. With a window into your world, backed by enterprise-level security, your team can collaborate with shared perspective, anytime, anywhere.
Bonjour, Amy. How can I help you? We're having some issues with our machine at C5. I could really use your help again. We just updated the manual for these. Great. This looks like an electrical issue. I've never seen that before. Have you? I think the Osaka plant had the same problem. Haruto's an expert on this. Oh yeah. Let's bring him into the call.
Hey there.
Hey, Haruto.
What's going on?
Well, we're having some issues here. Do you think it's this component?
Our issue was the charging relay.
Okay. I'll try that. Can you try this? Okay. That's a problem right there.
Even though you might be a world apart, you can solve problems together.
That worked.
You should be good to go now.
Great. Thanks for the help, you two.
See ya.
By bringing digital content and mixed reality annotations into your world, and connecting people across devices, you can get the help you need to solve difficult problems faster.
I mean, just imagine that we would have to fly the guy from Osaka to do the fixing. I don't know how hard or easy that was. But it just seems, I mean, in any scenario, when you think about scaling knowledge across the borders, across time and space, and this is, I mean, everything happens in Microsoft Teams, for example, the communication. You can utilize Microsoft Teams to translate whatever was done during that conversation, record it, and post it in your social media, for example, Yammer or Microsoft Teams that you use within your organization, and start spreading that knowledge across languages as well. That's when you start bridging information, artificial intelligence, and your knowledge across time and space. The second scenario is about spatial planning. And I picked this video up for the reason of not knowing that it was actually going to be launched yesterday or last night, but just because I like the way that it's It portrays moving from an immersive experience into a holographic experience of Windows mixed reality. So let's roll it.
Across all industries, transformation is key to growth, and designing new spaces involves detailed planning. If you aren't prepared, the smallest oversight can cause costly delays. With Microsoft Layout, you can plan your space, collaborate with others, and experience your designs with confidence in mixed reality before you build. You can bring the space to you and work from anywhere with an immersive experience. Visualize your layout in 3D. Try new ideas and iterate quickly. But even with the most detailed planning, the real world can present unexpected challenges that require creative problem solving. With HoloLens, you can work with high-quality 3D holograms integrated into your space. With Microsoft Layout, you have the tools you need to design and review in context and find new solutions that give you confidence before you commit. Transform your layout in moments with precision and speed. Share your designs with others.
Do you have time to take a look at this floor plan?
All right, let's have a look. And save time by making decisions together.
Great. Thanks for the quick work.
With Microsoft Layout, you can design faster, share your work with others, and experience your designs in mixed reality, so you can break new ground with confidence.
I just want to stress everything I've shown today is out there to be used already. This is not slideware. Getting out of time, so I wanted to highlight 3 things that I think on this journey of becoming an ultra marathon. I've never done it. I have no clue how to prepare for it. It seems crazy. Why would people do that? Anyways, 3 steps in our journey to digitalize our first-line workers. First one is every single employee needs to have a corporate digital identity. And that doesn't mean just for tracking or something. Without that, you don't exist in the digital culture, period. Start now. As I said, there's nothing stopping of you starting developing, doing everything else already now. And you can bring in the holograms, the virtual reality, once you're up to the speed of doing a basic marathon. You can do this at the same time. Technology is already there. And based on the information, the data points from the unions, for example, I would definitely empower your first-line workers in the process of digitalization. It can't be something that is like a sticker, it's just going to be stamped on you and that you're digitalized. I don't mean that we're going to do that, but I mean just empower, include them in the process. That's how you retain people, that's how you make it more meaningful for their work as well. So I want to thank you. And I don't know if we've got time for questions.
Yeah, so I think we have time for probably one quick question. If there's a question, you gotta raise your hands high because it's very bright up here. It's hard to see. No? No questions at all?
No. You can easily find me on LinkedIn as well. If you've got any questions, you can reach me out. Or you can send me an email, antti.korsman@microsoft.com. It's in English, I think.
Yeah, that's all right. That's cool. I think we all understand English here at this point. Cool. Well, then let's give Antti a quick round of applause, everybody. Thank you very much. And special thank you for the business company and friends. Very nice. All right. So it's time to bring up our final speaker. I think this is something we've talked about already here today, but in the XR field, human eye resolution is going to incite a revolution, and especially here in Finland, we're doing a whole lot thanks to all of the players here, but especially companies like Varjo. Finland is now a leading player in this industry. And here from Varjo, from Early Access Partnership at Varjo Technologies, we have Markus Heinonen. I think he's probably going to put the headset on and get himself ready, but while he does that, let's give him a big round of applause, everybody.
All right. Is this on?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. So great to be here. My name is Markus Heinonen. I come from Varjo Technologies, and we are jump-starting the revolution in immersive computing with the world's best virtual and mixed reality technologies. Just to give a little bit of context, let's look at the problems right now in the VR and XR space. So first of all, the VR devices, they are lacking the resolution that's needed for actual productive professional use. And that's been cutting back the adoption of VR so far. Then if you think about these optical see-through devices, such as Magic Leap and HoloLens, they have these two problems, as Steven pointed out in his previous presentation. You will always have that limited field of view, and the other thing is that the objects don't look real. They're hazy, and they're, well, more like holograms. And that's due to the fact that you lose the brightness when those lights go through the waveguides. And that's why the video pass-through is the only way to do realistic mixed reality for the time being. But before we can go into the pass-through mixed reality, we had to solve the VR problem first. So if we try to put cameras in front of the current VR headsets, the experience is so bad that you wouldn't want to use it. So our solution is what we call it is the bionic display, and it's the bionic display because it's inspired from the human biology. And our human's eyes, the way it works is that you can only see that very small area in the center at high detail at once, and everything in the periphery is always less detailed. So our technology is the technical implementation of that same principle. Here's a picture from the leading device on the market at the moment, the Vive Pro. As you can see, it's hard to see what the picture is about. Maybe it's a city scene, and when we get closer, we lose all the details. And here's the same picture through our headsets. So right now, the details start to pop up, and right now you see that it's a picture from Tokyo. Then, if we think about car designers, they would like to use VR throughout their whole design process. But right now, this is what they see in the headsets. So it's not really usable. They would like to see all those beautiful lines in their cars, see all the details such as the stitching on the car, and that's not possible with the current headsets. But here's a picture to Varjo's headset. So all of these pictures are taken directly inside the headsets with the camera, so no post-processing done. And here's a way how it works in practice. So we combine two different displays. We have in the background what we call the context display. This is similar to other VR headsets on the market. But then we will add that micro display, which creates that super high resolution in the center where you're naturally looking at. And this thing in the between, it's the optical combiner that creates that seamless image, what you see in the headset. And this is what we have right now. Also here, after this presentation, please come and check out. This is our first beta prototype that we are providing to our partners for testing, to learn from them, and to make the product as good as it can be for their use cases. And because we can't change the world alone, we have partnered with the world's leading companies from all of these different industry verticals. So first of all, as I already mentioned, the industrial design. Over there, we partner with Audi, Volkswagen Group, BMW. So these guys, they can use VR from the beginning of their design all the way to selling those cars. And right now, when they have the human eye resolution, they can stay longer in that digital design process instead of start building those physical prototypes, which will make it longer, that design process. It makes it harder to make changes and such. Then the second big one is simulation and training. So far, it has been impossible to read anything inside VR or see small buttons or anything like that. And if you think about the commercial simulation solutions on the market at the moment, they cost from few millions to up to tens of millions. So if you can do even a small part of that training inside VR, that's already a huge cost saving. Then architects, they really want to see how that building will look like in real life, as accurate as they can. So that's why they would like to use our technology. Then the last one is immersive entertainment, not so much on the consumption of content, but more on the virtual production. So nowadays in movies there are so much digital content that the actors have to act on green screen and imagine everything on the set. So right now they can put on the headset and see how it will look like as the final product. Then, as I already mentioned in the beginning, is that we are not just doing the VR part. We are also doing the mixed reality with the video pass-through technologies. So, and we believe that that's the only way that you can do realistic images in mixed reality for many years ago. And it's not that, for example, Magic Leap, they couldn't deliver what they promised. It's not that it's a bad company. There are amazing people working on this problem, but the way they're doing it, it's just such a hard problem that there's no way to do it that way yet. So that's why we are doing it with the pass-through. And this is a video that's shot through our first prototype in the beginning of summer. It was a huge stretch because this is the first prototype, but everything you can see in here is in real time and no post-processing done, only by that. So here we go. And now we don't have the sound. Try to see what's real and what's not in this video. So, a couple of things I want to highlight from this video is that, first of all, you get the whole field of view in use, not that small image. So if you're a designer, you want to see the whole building, not just a small block of it. Then, because it's a video feed, we have the full control of every pixel. We can create reflections, we can create shadows, and shadows is an interesting thing, because that's impossible to do with the optical see-through devices, because you can't add black pixels. So this is also where the name Vario comes from, because it's Finnish for shadow. Then the third thing is that you can jump between virtual and mixed reality. So you can go from working with your colleagues on a model to jump to full immersive VR after that, and back. So this will be an add-on that we will bring to the market on the second half of next year. It's a faceplate, you can just plug it in and your virtual reality headset turns into a mixed reality device. And just to recap, right now we are in the beta phase and we are launching the first commercial product by the end of this year, and then starting the mixed reality and the full immersive technologies revolution during next year. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, we have some time for some questions. If anyone has, raise your hand and I'll bring you the microphone. You gotta raise it nice and high. We have a typically Finnish crowd today, it seems.
Yeah. So please come and check out the demos.
We got one right here. We got one right here for you.
Yeah, I have one question. How do you compensate for the parallax error? Because if your cameras are in front of the device and your eyes are here, and if you work with your hands, then you kind of get a problem that you're not really seeing what your hands are doing.
Yeah, that's an interesting, very good question. And we also thought that could be an issue before we started. But right now, when you test with the prototype, you see that you really get used to it very fast, that it's not an issue. You would think that it is, but apparently our brains adapt to anything.
Another question? Yeah, right here.
Thank you for the great presentation. So, what do you think, what kind of hardware do you need for that device? I imagine it is tethered.
Yeah, it is tethered because we want to have the exceptional graphics, and that's why it would need the cord to the PC. And what we are recommending is the GTX 1080 from NVIDIA. So the performance needed from the PC is not much more than the current VR headsets on the market. And that's due to the fact that because our solution, we only have to render that small area in super high detail. So we solve that other problem with VR also, which is the rendering power. Because if you would like to render the whole scene in full human eye resolution, we are still 5 to 10 years away from that, because there isn't such hardware in the market.
Good question. Any other questions? No? All right, then let's give another round of applause, please, for Mark. Fantastic presentation. Good stuff to work on. And Haney's right here. She's got a little token of appreciation as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the seminar portion of today, but please remember a couple of quick things. Number one, the organizers of this event today have already started talking about planning next year's session, and again, you will get an email with some feedback form and some questions that you can provide some feedback for them so that they can help make sure that next time they put this up, that it's even more immersive and better. So let's give a round of applause, please, for all of the organizers. And let's especially thank our three sponsors again, Fostems, Valamet, and Glasstones as well, everyone. Remember, we've got workshops today at 4:30, and even if you're not registered, you can still attend the workshops. There's the Unity one in here with Mika Isoma, starts at 4:30, that's right here. And then Kari-Pekka Lammi from Leonidas will present in the classroom, and just ask a staff member if you can't find it, but it's just down the hall there. And the exhibition hall, don't forget, is open until 6 o'clock. So you should go check out all the demos and the wonderful things that the companies there have to present. Tonight at 6 o'clock, for those of you who have pre-registered, don't forget about the Leonidas after-work party in the city center at their offices. That is it for the seminar. Let's get one more final big round of applause for everyone, all of the challenges, everyone who presented, of course the winners. Thank you very much, everyone. That's it for the Xrchallenge seminar. Go enjoy the exhibition hall. Thank you.
Vähintään 12 minuuttia kesken näin.
I was looking right up there. It was bad timing. A couple of hiccups there, but we found a way to smooth it. Yeah. And you know, these flags are actually done 7 years It was pretty funny after the break. That's the hardest part. It was still very fun. And people were crowding up like I mean, it's
Friday. But basically, really interesting. I also have some like ideas
well, that just means for the next event, maybe we'll find someone to talk about the future of
Yeah, I want to talk about we've been having our right mail. Yeah, I depends on how you leave. You know what? Awesome. So I also I'm not going to disagree.
Okay.
Juu, ja mä olin tuossa, silloin tuossa oli se SL.
Meni kauhean nopeasti päivällä.
Joo, me kyllä.
Joo.
I'm Mika Isama. It's so great to be here. I'm from Unity Technologies, and I'm about to talk about AR Foundation to you, and soon you'll know what that is. Who of you are developers? Can you raise hands? So a few of you, thanks. So I'm Mika. These are my details. If you want to reach out, please do, about anything related to Unity, or more generally, or more specifically, monetization side. I work on the mobile monetization side in the Helsinki office. And we're also developing AR ads right now, as we speak. So AR is a frontier. We consider AR a mobile frontier that is going to be relevant in the future. So this demonstration presentation is going to cover what's AR Foundation and what it does, and I'm going to show you how it works. So first, the jargon buster. I think you've already seen these, but I'll just recap. So AR means augmented reality, MR means mixed reality, and VR is virtual reality, and these combined are XR. So what is AR Foundation? It's a project or a plugin for your Unity project that you can integrate it, and after that you don't have to worry about integrating separately the AR kit and AR core components. Miksi mä puhun muuten englantia? Kysyn Joo. So just to confirm, there's no English speakers here. Okay. Elikkä, joo, siis tää on tällainen plugini, liitännäinen teidän Unity-projektiin. Te voitte sillä helposti integroida AR-kitin ja AR-coren, joka siis kattaa sen jälkeen iOS:n ja Androidin. Elikkä helpottaa sitä integrointia kummallekin alustalle. Laitatte vaan tämän paketin kiinni teidän projektiin ja teidän pitäisi sitten saada homma toimii. Tässä on jotain lukuja siitä, mitä arvioidaan tuon AR-markkina-arvoksi sen Industriin 2023 mennessä. Mä näytän pari esimerkkiä tässä. Tää on vähän niin kuin se, mistä on lähdetty, eli tracking-markkereista AR:ssä. Eli näytetään ensin ruudulle, että siellä on tällainen tracking-markkeri, ja sen jälkeen sitten se sovellus osaa seurata sitä siellä. Ja siitä on menty sitten vähän pitemmälle, eli tällaiseen point cloudin skannaamiseen ja pintojen tunnistamiseen ja merkkaamiseen ja hyödyntämiseen sitten siinä AR-kontekstissa. Tää tässä näin on tuolta Unite Intiasta. Katsotaan lähteekö se pyörii. Voi lähteä tai voi olla lähtemättä. Okay. Joo, eli siellä oli tommonen niinku maassa oleva robotti. Sen näköjään kaikki ei ole ihan videoita. Tässä on muutama teollisuussovellus. Niitäkin olette varmaan tänään nähnyt. Okei. Mä ohittelen hieman näitä, koska tässä käydään yksityiskohtaisemmin läpi noita. Tässä on sitten itse toiminnassa tää, ja tässä on pari komponenttia mainittu, jotka löytää kanssa. Eli tuossa on käytössä Point Cloud Manager, jonka näette piirtävän noita pisteitä tuonne pöydän pintaan, kun se tunnistaa sieltä kohinasta ne. Ja AR Plane Manager sitten taas katsoo ne pisteet ja tekee niiden pohjalta siihen pinnan, johon voi sitten maailmassa laittaa niitä esineitä. Kun liikuttaa kameraa, niin sitten se pintakin yrittää liikkua siellä luontevasti niin kuin sen maailman mukaan suhteessa siihen. Ja siitä tulee kaikki AR. Elikkä mä nyt näytän teille nopean editoridemon, eli tää on siis alle vartissa laitettu appis. Se on hyvin helppo kytkeä AR Foundation, AR-kit ja AR Core-projektiin. Eli nyt mä latasin tämän sovelluksen, mä katson lähteekö tää heti tunnistaa tältä pintoja. Joo, sieltä ruvetaan tunnistamaan. Eli mä vähän liikutan tätä, niin sinne ilmestyy ensimmäiset pinnat. Mä menen kauemmas ja mä vaihdan asentoa ja sitten se pinta on siellä ja nyt se laajenee tässä, kun mä maalaan sitä lisää. Tunnistaako se tonnekin? Tässä on tonnekin suuntaan. Ja sitten tähän on lisätty tähän sovellukseen tämän lisäksi niin sellainen tsekki. Täällä on vähän hämärää ehkä, mutta mä menen tuonne valossa pisteeseen. Otatko sen oikein anteeksi? pintaan sitten talteen.
Se on vähän lähemmästä, jos se on tässä. Lisäksi tuossa on se, että pimeässä se ei välttämättä tunnista sitä niin helposti, mutta siihen yleensä auttaa se, jos niin kuin, liikuttaa sitä laitetta sillä niin kuin syvyyssuunnassa sen pinnan mukaan, niin silloin se yleensä tunnistaa huomattavasti nopeammin sen pinnan. Jos pitää vaan paikallaan laitetta, niin siinä voi kestää kauan ja lisäksi pimeässä se ei toimi kovin hyvin aina.
Aivan, joo. Nyt se näyttää tunnistavansa paremmin, kun aloitti tuosta läheltä. Se osaa nyt seurata niitä kiintopisteitä, se on havainnut. Nyt kun mä painan sinne, niin sinne tuli tutun näköinen rakennus. Hain sen SketchUpista, eli nyt siellä on yksi näsinneula liitettynä sinne. Ja nythän näsinneulaa sitten voi katsella eri kulmista, että siinä on niinku 3D-objekti, joka näköjään renkaa sisältäkin jotain. Ja siinä on näsinneula nyt sitten sillä pinnalla. Ja tää on niinku vartissa kasaan kytketty. Tähän on laitettu lisäksi semmonen raycast, eli se, kun mä painan tuohon ruudulla, niin se tekee niin kuin vetää viivan sieltä suoraan siihen pintaan siellä AR-todellisuudessa, ja sitten se osuu siihen pintaan ja katsoo, että se oli tässä ja luo siihen sitten tämän näsinneulan tässä tapauksessa. Ja ne on sitten niin kuin, kuten huomaatte, niin linkitetyt kontekstit, eli se AR ja todellisuus on siellä päällekkäin. Nyt mä hävitin sen pinnan, koska toi on pelkkää kohinaa toi lattia tossa ja vähän hämärää, kun näsinneulan poikittain. Mutta tämmönen integraatio on siis tosi helppoa, eli tarvii vaan avata Unity 2018 joku versio, sieltä Package Manager, sieltä AR Foundation, AR Kit ja AR Core. Ja sen jälkeen, jos haluaa, niin voi hakea vielä siihen semmoisen käytännöllisen, hei, saat sä tähänkin muuten, hei. Niin, GitHub-repossa, repositorissa löytyy vielä sitten sellainen kokoelma hyödyllisiä työkaluja, joilla pystyy vaikkapa tuon äskeisen, sen nyt äkkiä kirjoittaa itsekin, mutta niin kun sieltä löytyy toi place on plane, eli kun painaa siihen planeen, niin voi jonkun prefab-objektin sijoittaa sille planeille. Ja sitten sen on AR Foundation Samples, eli yhteen AR Foundation -samples siellä Unity Technologies repossa. Mulla ei sitä tässä presessä nyt lue, mutta se löytää AR Foundation yhteen -samples. Kannattaa ottaa, sieltä löytyy sellaisia kuin AR Feathered Plane Mesh Visualizer, joka on, mä en testannut, mä veikkaan, että se on sellainen, että se on tuohon meshiin sellainen niin kuin reuneen pehmennys, featherointi tarkoittaa sitä, että vähän niin kuin feidataan niitä reunoja. Mä olettaisin, että se on sitä varten, että siinä ei näy sellaista niin kuin, kaikki ei välttämättä halua sellaista teräväreunasta kuvioa siihen, vaan ehkä semmoisen niin kuin feidaavan nurmikon, joka tulee siihen oikean nurmikon päälle. Sitten Light Estimation, se toimii tosi hyvin. Se ottaa siitä kuvasta ilmeisesti sen valoisuuden ja sitten laittaa ne valot siellä skenessä matchaamaan siihen, ja se näyttää niin kuin se kuuluisi sitten sen jälkeen sinne skeneen se objekti, se 3D-objekti. Ja ne löytyy kaikki tuosta AR Foundation Samples repositorista. Mitäs muuta täällä on? Pieni mä näytän kohta vähän editoria, mutta joo, siinä ei ole vielä multithread rendering supporttia, se toimii vain X64, eli pitää ottaa x86 pois päältä build settingsissa Unityssä. Sen kohta minimi API-versio 2.4 Androidista, ei aiemmin toimi. Ja tosiaan niin lähtee iPhone 6S ja sitten suunnilleen Samsung Galaxy S7 Plus, niin ovat yhteensopivia. Vaatii tuoreemman Androidin. Tänään päivitin Googlen referenssipuhelimen uusimpaan Androidiin ja se brikkaantui heti siitä. Mä en suosittele 8 vielä välttämättä, se vuottakaan myöhemmin. Mutta joo, kunhan löydätte yhteensopivan puhelimen, niin sitten toimii. Ei vielä tuohon slaidiin. Avataan tästä tää editori. Elikkä tää oli tosiaan näin yksinkertaista, että mä menen tänne pakettimanageriin. Sitten pitää laittaa kaikki, tai siis myös Preview-paketit näkyviin. Ja sitten ottaa sieltä AR Foundation, AR Core, AR Kit. Ja ei tarvi välttämättä tietenkään AR Core, jos ei sitä käytä. Nyt tässä on AR Kit. Sitten vaan niin kun, tämän skenen pitää olla tietynlainen, ne ohjeet löytyy kans niin kun, tähän liittyvästä AR Foundationin integraatio-ohjeista, mutta siellä pitää olla tietynlaiset objektit skenessä, eli täytyy olla tämä AR-session objekti, jossa pitää olla AR-session komponentti, ja sitten pitää olla AR-session origin, ja siellä nämä muutama komponenttia, eli tässä tapauksessa täällä on Plane Manager, Point Cloud Manager, Session Origin. Ja me ollaan laitettu myös tämä Decorator tähän näin tässä tapauksessa, joka siis tässä sijoittaa sen näsinneulan siihen pintaan. Täällä on tämä näsinneula-objekti ja sitten täällä on skaalattu sitä sadasosaan, koska se oli vähän liian iso, kun se oli luonnollisessa koossa, niin sitten se tuli sellaiseksi tämmöiseksi siihen eteen. Tuntuu ihan kuin on oikein näsinneulan juurella ja se menee tuosta katosta läpi. Se oli hyvän näköinen kuitenkin. Kannattaa, Ketchupista löytyy oikein näsinneula jonkun tekemänä, sitä voi käyttää vissiin vapaasti. Sitten täällä pitää olla AR-session originin alla AR-kamera. Siellä on tracked pose driver, mä pistin siihen pose sourcen color kamera. Eli se käyttää sitten tuota kameraa sen asennon tunnistamiseksi. Ja voi myös laittaa custom taustan siihen, jos haluaa peittää sen tämänhetkisen tai sen AR-kuvan. Ja integraatio oli tosiaan niin kuin siis siinä, että ne komponentit tänne sisään ja tässä tapauksessa, tai siis paketit, ja sitten vielä laitettiin mä laitoin täältä näin, no mä en tiedä joo, sieltä sample-reposta, tuolla, eli Unity Technologies, täällä löytyy AR Foundation Samples repo. Laitatte tämän mukaan, niin sitten se kehitys helpottuu merkittävästi. Ja mä väitän, että ihan aloittelijakin pystyy tällä näin, jos on jonkun verran Unity-kokemusta, niin AR:n kanssa aloittelija pystyy tällä näin tekemään vartissa sovelluksen. Ja siitä vaan innolla kehittelemään. Mulla ei oikeastaan ole mitään tämän kummempaa. Mä tulin vaan kertomaan, että sellainen löytyy kuin AR Foundation, jolla pystyy sitten vähän helpommin integroimaan molemmille alustoille, eli Androidille ja iOSlle, tämän AR-järjestelmän ja käyttämään sitä cross-platform. Tuleeko mieleen kysymyksiä muutoin? Kiitos.
Onkohan tuonne tulossa niitä kuvan, vaikka sanoitkin aikaisemmin oli kuvan tunnistus, nyt on jotain muuta hienoa, mutta onkohan ne tulossa ne kuitenkin myös ne kuvan tunnistus ja objektin tunnistushommat tuohon mukaan?
Aivan, eli puhuttaisiin varmaan...
Niin AR-kit ja AR-core omat siis.
Niin aivan, mä en osaa niistä kyllä sanoa. Niin AR Foundation menee ihan niiden ehdoilla sitten, mitä niissä onkaan, niin AR Foundation yrittää räppärinä kattaa ne kaikki.
No niissähän on kyllä, ja sitten muutenkin, että kuinka paljon kehitetään, että nythän toi ei tule AR-kit 2 vielä, vaikka se on ollut jo jonkun aikaa.
Aivan.
Joo, siis kyllä sitä kehitetään ja sen verran tiedän sanoa niistä kuvatunnistuksista, että niitäkin sinne ollaan laittamassa, mutta en osaa valitettavasti sanoa niin minkäänlaista.
Joo, no mutta eli on kuitenkin tulos jossakin vaiheessa.
Joo, kyllä niitä kehittää helposti.
Joo, kiitos Niko tuosta. Täällä on aiemmin, nämä on Liamin slaidit, niin hänen yhteystiedot on täällä sitten. Hän on evankelista, joka hoitaa tätä AR-puolta. Mä sitten lainasin hänen slaidit tähän hommaan. Mutta joo, jos ei mitään kummempaa kysymystä, niin nyt tuu mieleen, niin voi kuitenkin myöhemmin olla yhteydessä. Mä ihan mielellään juttelen kehittäjien ja muiden kanssa näistä aiheista. Jos en itse osaa vastata johonkin, niin mä pistän viestin eteenpäin sellaiselle, joka osaa. Ja koitan sitten löytää apua. Luultavasti näillä pääsee aika pitkälle tässä AR-kehityksessä. Kiitos paljon.
Ja semmoisen voi vielä mainita tähän loppuun, että tosiaan kun oli sitä dokumentaatiosta puhetta, niin se löytyy kanssa sieltä repositorista. Eli kun menette sinne AR Foundation Samples, niin siellä on sitten linkki niin kuin tämmöiseen niin kuin ihmisen luettavan dokumentaatioon, just siellä alhaalla siellä näin.
Joo, tosiaan
niin,
täällä löytyy tämä dokumentaatio.
Joo, niin siellä on sitten myös ohjeita, että kuinka niitä eri komponentteja käytetään.
Jeps.
Mutta tämäkin dokumentti, niin tämä on niin kuin päivittyvä dokumentti jatkuvasti, että sinne tulee sitten uutta tavaraa sitten mukaan, kun ne kehittää sen.
Joo, oikein integraatio lyhyt ohje on huomattavasti helpompi, että se on vaan sellainen muutama kohta, mikä pitää muistaa. Eli mä nyt menen vielä tänne editoriin, että mä näytän ne kohdat kanssa. Mikä mä äsken mainittiin, niin se on ihan hyvä. Eli täällä on tosiaan player settings. Täältä pitää ottaa pois päältä multithreaded rendering. Sitten täältä pitää ottaa tää x86-tuki pois päältä. Ja hetkonen, mikä se oli vielä? Oliko siinä vielä se yksi?
Siitä oli se API-leveli vaan, se 2.4 Android Nougat.
Jepsistä. Eli Android Nougat pitää olla käytössä. Yes. Kiitos.
jotain uutta. Niin, mä oon itse ollut parilla kurssilla. Joo. Niin, yksi oli semmoinen paljon semmoista interaktiivisen animaation kurssilla ja se oli nimenomaan toi. Joo. Esimerkkejä. Joo. Mä voisin niitä vaikka se oli tosi hyvä siinä Sveitsissä oli nyt se Turku Animated Film Festival, niin animaatioklinikka järjesti niin sen yhteydessä koulutuksen. Silloin jos on kaksi semmoista, siis toinen on semmoinen niin enemmän tämmöinen animaattori ja taiteilija ja sitten sillä on työperinäkoulutus. Niin ne veti semmoisen interaktiivisen animaation työpajan, mikä on tällä siististi. Ne on 2D-juttuja. Vaikka toi on niinku, toihan 3D:hin tarkoittaa. Niin, se on aika huikea. Sinne voi siis julkaista nettiin.
Mikä se oli se laite?
Siis ne ei ollut